So there was this one episode that literally got a whirlwind of emotions going. It wasn't dramatic, it was like an entire procession of lies, lie upon lie. The most striking was Robyn's assertion that she contributed heavily early on. For many, that was the greatest shock of all, because as far as people could recall, Robyn did not give. She took. She entered the family with debt, and it was the other wives who ultimately had to pay off roughly 30,000 of it. And even after that enormous sacrifice, she never seemed quite all that thankful. Then there was the baptism scene. One of the viewers reported that they had to turn it off right there, just couldn't stand watching Kody participate in something so very holy when he demonstrated so little enthusiasm about his other children. The favoritism was glaring. He lavished attention on Robyn's kids and pretty much ignored his others. To a lot of people, it hurt to watch, especially as Kody's first children continued to drop further and further into the background. There's so much to get through today, so let's not lose a minute. Let's get right into it. Hi everyone, what's up? It's Era here and welcome back to my show, Reality Recap. A few viewers felt like the entire plotline regarding spiritual renewal was filler, something cobbled together after Garrison's death, because they didn't want to address him in plain terms. If the producers were not going to directly deal with that loss, most thought the show could at least spend some time strengthening genuine bonds among the family members, rather than delivering a shiny, empty diversion instead. Seeing those segments consume worthwhile screen time was infuriating and frustrating when there were real stories to be shared. And that wasn't all that made people uncomfortable. Robyn and Kody's body language in certain scenes, particularly when they attempted to justify or explain things, grated on viewers. They referenced the early years as if they started the moment she came into the family, ignoring all that happened before. That sort of revisionist history didn't appeal to many. Some observers pointed out that Kody and Robyn played as if the family, and perhaps even the show, was there because of her. Given that the concept of a fourth wife was the initial hook, it's as if they felt the money was theirs, as much as anyone's. Yes, the pitch did take hold only once a new wife was in the mix. But women were quick to remind one another that it was the other women who provided the show with soul. They allowed others into their homes, showed their vulnerabilities, and invited their lives to be viewed. Robyn, on the other hand, tended to present herself as closed off, more judgmental than open. A further source of annoyance was the financial dynamics. Kody seemingly attempted to persuade Janelle into purchasing Christine's house, but only if she did so with her own money, not because it was just, but so he could maintain the house in the family. Others speculated that he also urged Christine to sell it at a lower price than market value, scheming for his own gain. Christine had mentioned that she gave Janelle a good price, a compassionate, honest one. But when Kody intervened, it seemed like it was about ownership and control all over again. Robyn also had a talent for spinning facts to fit her own version of events. She'd protest that she'd never been in a bar, despite having video footage of her and Kody being in one. Even when she technically spoke the truth, it somehow sounded as though she was leaning on carefully selected phrases, stopping short of outright lies, but still avoiding actual accountability. One of the highlights in a different context was Janelle having her first taste of alcohol. She chose a buttery nipple, light, sweet, after a subtle push by David, who presented himself as truly kind. He led the moment so that she felt neither out of place nor awkward. That small kindness did not go amiss. Overall, individuals seem to believe that Janelle has been one of the more reliable, consistent voices within the family. Her storyline has stayed constant, while Kody and Robyn's narratives had seemed to change depending on what worked for them. Individuals felt as though they practiced their stories together, getting their stories in sync in order to seem united, even though reality spoke otherwise. Others even imagined that Robyn could be experiencing ambivalence. There might have been a feeling of emotional gratification about being the primary wife, basking in all that love and attention. But now, basically trapped in a monogamous arrangement, she could be beginning to feel the burden of that fact, particularly if she's concerned that Kody will someday set out to find someone else. She would sometimes toss around the possibility of taking on additional wives if she really felt Kody would see it through. But naturally, it wasn't all Robyn and Kody receiving criticism. Some viewers admitted the original trio of wives weren't entirely faultless either. They too had their own periods of deception throughout the years. Nevertheless, when Robyn stated that everything had always been level, despite the emotional and financial weight she brought, that was a tipping point for many people. She came in debt, required a completely new house, brought home a nanny without a job, and contributed very little in the support department. By anyone's measurement, what she referred to as contributions didn't add up to much. And then there was the legendary big house dream, Kody's ambitious plan for one collective house where they could all reside. Some truly thought it was from a place of kindness. He invested time, money, and energy into the concept. Perhaps he was tired of living out of a duffel bag, and the constant switching between households had finally gotten to him, particularly at his age. Others saw that house proposal as the last straw, a request so outrageous that it was a discreet exit. It was a way for him to bail out without appearing to do so. In the end, it came down to this. Rather than being honest and acknowledging he was done, Kody kept raising the bar, setting standards no one could accomplish, and in doing so, he made it appear as though the others just weren't cutting it hard enough, all the while avoiding blame for his own actions. The outcome? A slow, muddled disintegration, laced with contradictions, half-truths, and betrayal that still hasn't been fully dealt with. Now there's this upcoming tell-all episode, and to be honest, I'm dreading it. The thought of watching Robyn sit there again, asking everyone to keep her name out of their mouths when she's been constantly involved in everyone else's marriages, is just infuriating. She's had something to say about every other relationship, commenting on things that weren't hers to comment on, and now she wants silence in return? It doesn't add up. What really irritates people is the way she behaved when Christine did decide to leave. She gaslit her, told her everything had been just fine in Las Vegas, created a picture of the past that wasn't remotely accurate. And in between it all, her debt, the nanny, the shopping, her I speak Kody attitude, she manages to maintain this victim role. That's such elaborate denial. It is draining to be around. And isn't it ironic? The youngest wife, the one who entered the scene with so much baggage, is now the one taking the high moral ground. She's in a monogamous relationship today, but she was the loudest mouth when it came to plural marriage, inserted herself into every aspect of it. And now she demands immunity from its fallout. There's this one moment folks constantly refer to, how she continues to adjust her attire or fluff her hair just before evading a question or distorting the truth. It's a tell. She'll glance off in another direction, never once meet any eye contact. Others think she married into the family primarily so she could receive assistance in raising her children, maybe expecting the other wives to take care of it. Then there's Kody, who seems to get genuine satisfaction from being her rescuer. That dynamic between them, him taking pride in the role of hero, her leaning into it, has only become more obvious over time. He treats her like something fragile, and she fully leans into that image. And now, Suki's back as the host of the tell-alls, and people are not thrilled. There is a perception that she isn't holding Kody's feet to the fire. He speaks down to her in the same manner he spoke to the wives, and rather than pushing back against him, she seems to retreat. Some believe she just isn't up for handling his energy level, while others think that she doesn't know the history of the show well enough to be asking the questions she should be asking. The structure has changed significantly, too. In the days when there were 4 wives, they all sat on the couch together. Nowadays, even with Kody and Robyn being the only ones remaining, they're interviewed individually. Most people think it's been done to death, that they've run over their lines. And yet, as soon as Kody does go off message, you can see the tension grow on Robyn's face as she attempts to steer him back. That tension does a lot of speaking. Audiences have had enough of the scripted narrative. Kody and Robyn weave fibs that conflict with what was previously established in earlier shows, and no one really calls them on it. Robyn keeps up her pattern as well, crying, walking out when a question is too close to home, only to reappear when she's prepared to talk again, always on her own terms. What hurts the most is the obvious absence of fairness. The other women are grilled with deep emotional questions and subjected to footage intended to rile them up. But Kody and Robyn? Kid gloves all the way. Robyn especially always appears to be getting a free pass, even excusing herself when the situation gets awkward. Whenever it gets awkward, Robyn makes a hasty exit, and Kody just doesn't get pushed. The money issues keep popping up too, how Robyn and Kody appear to be holding on to joint possessions and money, while requesting intimacy and space. It's impossible not to see that much of what they then possess is based upon the labor of the other wives now getting displaced. There's this sense of increasing awareness that human beings are no longer falling for the charade. These tell-alls don't read like revelations. They read as scripted, constructed not to deliver answers, but in order to leave the viewers sufficiently annoyed to continue viewing. Actual closure? Oftentimes not on the menu. Responsibility? Practically never. Viewers are watching not for candor, but because they're fascinated by the unraveling, the scripted lines, the calculated pauses, the acting it out. Somehow, the less that's actually said, the more is revealed. It started with a line from a clip. Robyn, in the new tell-all, wishing the other wives would just simply stop talking about her and concentrate on their relationships. At first blush, it appeared a mere request to be left alone with respect or boundaries. But to many viewers, that one sentence resonated. It set off a complete firestorm of reactions, hinting at something far more profound. For several seasons, Robyn has made herself available by discussing the other wives, about Mary's acrimonious relationship with Kody, about Christine's decision to exit, about the stress between Janelle and Kody. Her on-camera discussions, be it with Kody or during her own interviews, tended to be about the other women and their issues. So when she just blithely announces that she doesn't want to be left out of it, a lot of people interpreted that as grossly hypocritical. To them, it wasn't merely ironic, it was a dodge. She didn't so much argue with what was said about her, she just didn't want it said. And that, to many, was deeply revealing. For years, it was as if Christine, Janelle, and Mary had to walk on eggshells when it came to anything with Robyn. Even a whiff of criticism was considered risky, likely to incite Kody's ire. But now, those women are finding their voices, and the dynamic has changed. Robyn, once so at the center of the family's inner lives, no longer holds the same sway. And you can sense the difference. Audiences also caught on to the way Robyn has long played a double role, both the empath who got everyone's feelings and the gentle, reserved outsider too sensitive for fighting. Both made her able to work behind the scenes, but still appear to have clean hands. But since the other women are now talking openly, that facade is beginning to crack. Take Mary's revelation, for example. Despite Robyn's past gestures of sisterhood, Mary felt completely alone, especially during key moments like when her mother passed away. Then there were Mykelti's comments, and others too, suggesting that Robyn's relationships with the family were mostly one-sided. She rarely put in the same effort she expected from everyone else. There's also a general sense that Robyn and Kody have insulated themselves in a bubble, both emotionally and physically, where nothing is ever their fault. Rather than taking responsibility for what they themselves do, they just keep blaming the original wives. But Robyn's unease isn't simply about being named. It's the worry that these women will begin comparing notes, that the truth will finally come out, information that was never presented to the public, things that might shatter the narrative she's carefully constructed. The irony is not lost on the audience. She's appearing on a reality television show, one based entirely upon family dynamics, and yet she wishes to dictate what aspects of the family are discussed. That impulse to censor, for many, destroyed any remaining sense of authenticity. At the core of it, this isn't merely about Robyn desiring her name out of other people's mouths. It's about a larger realization. The power dynamics are transforming. The skillfully crafted roles are disintegrating. The first three wives are finally sharing their realities, and they're no longer concerned with maintaining a narrative that never was fair to them. This is about responsibility, about telling the truth, about what happens when individuals who have been silenced for years are finally able to speak out. Whether Robyn wants it or not, her name will be mentioned, not because of malice, but because she's involved in the story. And then there was the entire nanny situation and the COVID regulations, which always seemed wrong. Kody and Robyn had these ridiculously stringent protocols. The regulations made it almost impossible for the rest of the family to visit one another. Everyone was instructed to quarantine, stay away from others, adhere to what seemed like excessive guidelines. And yet, they had a nanny in their household? The nanny, who, unlike true family members, wasn't within the household bubble, was still coming and going daily. She returned home to her own family each night, to people no one could really keep track of in terms of safety or exposure. And what made it all even more perplexing was that both Kody and Robyn were at home full-time during this time. There were only 2 young children in the house and a few teens to boot. So of course the question was, why the nanny? What was she even present for? Especially when other members of the family, such as Mary, who lived on her own, were totally shut off under the same so-called guidelines. To a great many viewers, it didn't seem like safety. It seemed like an excuse to lock people out, a handy wall to hide behind. There were also suspicions regarding how candid Kody and Robyn were regarding where they originally contracted COVID. They said Brianna brought it home from school, but others doubted it. Some had speculations that it was actually Kody, considering how frequently he was spotted outside without a face mask. Either way, the chronology raised many an eyebrow. And then naturally there was that scene, Kody on the floor distraught, insisting that he had been heartbroken at being away from Aurora for 10 days, with a 99 Mindig fever no less. The theatrics were memorable, to put it mildly, but still, people wondered, what exactly did the nanny do? Fans will never forget that now iconic moment when Christine asked that very same thing. Gabe and Garrison standing up to their father about the very obvious double standards also resonated. Some viewers speculated the nanny assisted with tutoring during virtual school. Others wondered perhaps she cooked, cleaned, or did general housework. But even then, all of that under the umbrella title of nanny. It didn't compute. This was a home with 2 parents home full-time and a bunch of teenage children. In comparison to so many other families, single mothers or 2-income families who managed it all without assistance, Robyn's demanding that she needed a nanny irritated people. To everyone else, it appeared less a matter of needing assistance and more of lifestyle. Time to shop, to collect dolls, or simply to opt out of the more messy aspects of parenthood. Folks recalled Robyn defending the nanny in previous seasons, claiming she needed help when Kody was off visiting the other wives. But when COVID was at its peak, Kody wasn't visiting the other wives. He was home at Robyn's every day. That cover story no longer worked. Worse, Kody and Robyn took those rigid rules and used them to isolate themselves from the rest of the family. But where an outsider, such as a paid caregiver, was concerned, there was an exception. That kind of selective enforcement sent a message to many that this wasn't so much about looking out for anyone. It was about keeping control and others out. Now, to be fair, some did stand up for the early precautions. The early days of the pandemic were terrifying, and being serious about safety was reasonable. But even those onlookers had to concede. Kody's actions didn't match his words. His home let someone in from outside, while vaccinated relatives remained locked out. It was the contradiction that was noticeable. Ultimately, the nanny situation wasn't solely about COVID. It became emblematic of something more, of trust broken, obvious favoritism, and the gradual unraveling of the broader family dynamic. It was never solely about health. It was about priorities, about who counted, about who got to be in the inner circle when it really mattered. Whether the nanny infected them with COVID or not became quite beside the point. Her presence encapsulated all the other things that had been falling apart. And for many fans, that picture stuck. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and much love to you all.